Yesterday, I showed you how I created this technique on this cover following a technique that Shannon Green had shared. I'm really happy with how it's dried. This cover is still in progress. There's more I want to do to it, but I'm not going to do that today. I am still painting, and more painting. I counted the pages. There are 408 double page layouts in this combination of magazines and 816 single page layouts. So there's a lot to paint, painting out the unwanted text in these pages. So I really do want to get all that finished before I do too much in this magazine idea journal. Dede Williamson is the inspiration for this project. Yay! Thank you, Dede. This project is so fun, just totally fun. However, I cannot not do anything in this journal. What I'm going to do today is really inspired by some questions on my last video where I just showed the painted pages and we did the cover. One of the questions was, what do you use in your fine line paint applicators? I only have about 6, maybe 7 of these, and I reuse them. I keep filling up. I use black craft paint, actually the most inexpensive version I can find, and white craft paint. Here I've taken to buy the 8-ounce versions because I use black and white. And black and white, I really go through these bottles of paint in my fine line paint applicator. I so like these because I can refill them. Now I do have both sizes, the 18 gauge nozzle, which is the standard size, and then the fine tip, which is the 20 gauge nozzle. Now what I have in here is a metallic acrylic, and I tend to put my paint in the fine line paint applicators undiluted. When I first started out using these, I was adding airbrush medium, and you can do that. You can dilute your paint with water, with airbrush medium, with gel medium, but just be aware that when you're diluting it, that you are making it thinner, and that will affect how it is applied to the page. It depends on what you're doing. But mostly, I just put my craft paint in the applicator undiluted. With craft paint, it creates a very, I say, a thick texture. When it dries, you have to let it dry. If you don't let it dry, you're going to smudge it. Smudging it is okay if that's the look you're after. I mean, you may want to do something where you apply a line and then go in and work with it. I just tend to put my craft paint in undiluted, walk away for an hour or two, let it dry completely before I go on. But what I'm going to do in today's video is I'm going to experiment, because I cannot keep my hands off of doing something in this journal. This is a playground. How can you walk by a playground unless the construction workers put up fencing? How can you walk by the playground and not sit on the swing? Not have a go at the merry-go-round? Not try to balance yourself on the teeter-totter? So I am going to experiment with some different writing materials in here. Dede has warned us against using Sharpies and anything with a felt tip marker because your acrylic paint will dry out the felt tip. So I'm going to put the cap back on this, and I'm not going to use it. I love my marks a lot. They're permanent ink. I use them, and I use them, and I use them, and I use them. So I don't want to dry out the felt tip on this. So I'm going to put it back in my toolbox. And I'm going to work with some of these others. I'm going to work with my fine line paint applicators, which has black and white. And this is a bronze acrylic paint in here. This has been in here for several months, so it may be even thicker than what I'm anticipating. I may not be able to write with it. I may just do some doodles with it. I'm also going to use the Bic pens. I have never used Bic pens on acrylic ink, but the suggestion from Dede is yes, they work. So when I was out yesterday doing my shopping, I picked up a package of Bic pens, and I'm going to test those. Recently, I was at Hobby Lobby and I found these Molotow markers, paint markers. They're the smaller ones, and look, they're $9 markers, and I got them for $2. And I thought, oh, the paint has to be dried up or something. But no, I opened this one and I used it, and boy, do I like it. And I like these because they can be refilled. Now, I haven't refilled mine yet, so I don't buy these because they're really above my price point. But when I saw such a discount on these, I had to pick them up to try them. In conjunction with using the Bic marker, I'm going to try my R2 pens, which I really like. I get these at the Dollar Tree, 2 for $1, and I really like to draw with these. I'm also going to experiment with Stabilo pencils. Stabilos are created to also work on other surfaces than just paper, glass, plastic, and metal. So I thought, well, why wouldn't a Stabilo pencil work on craft paint? Surely it will. I have a biggie one. I love these big ones because they give that broad line. And then I just have a regular Stabilo pencil. So this one happens to be a sepia one. I'm going to experiment with using some ink. Now I have a dip pen. I might try. I haven't used my dip pens for a while, so they need, the points need to be cleaned out, but I might try using dip pen. I'm also going to use a brush. In fact, I have a set of smaller brushes here that I thought might be fun to try to write with brushes. Also, one thing that Dede demonstrated in her last video was just using the dopper to write with. So I'm going to experiment with that. I'm going to be using more than one page, believe me. We're going to start out with this page. I also have some more Stabilo pencils here. I think one of these is a watercolor marker because I use these for my urban sketching. But there's a white Stabilo, a brown one, and a black one. And then I thought, well, I'm just going to try some. This is Derwent's sketching collection. I thought I would just try writing with some of the pencils in here, especially the darker ones. Oh, this is a charcoal pencil. This is a terracotta one. This is a wash, dark wash, a medium wash. I must have taken out the lead pencil, and a light wash. And then there's some charcoal pieces in here too. So I might just play with writing with some pencils. Keep in mind, not all of these are permanent. So whatever you put down on the page, you might need to seal it. But I'm just going to experiment. And going to start out on this page. I'm going to start with the black fine line paint applicator, which may not be a good choice because I'm going to have to stop my video and let it dry, but I will do that. Talk about a page inspiring you. This was a page in the Capper's Farmer, And it says job description of a country cat. Now, I painted out the text, so I don't know everything they said here. I painted it out. When I'm doing some of these other pages, I might try to save some of the text, but I am going to write some fun things just looking at the pictures. Right here, I may put roam the property. I can just see under here, roam the property, and you'll find them sitting near a wood pile. I might say catching vicious mice, defending the property from evil birds, something like that. Getting into mischief. This one says, sometimes I think they're a part of the chicken flop and will take up residence in the coop. So you say protecting the coop. So I'm going to kind of go into fast forward on some of these segments while I'm writing, and I'll probably let it dry and then come back and maybe chat about it a little and then go on to the next one. But I thought I would stop and talk a little about writing with the fine line paint applicator. This takes a little practice. If you try this, if you're inexperienced with the fine line paint applicators, all I have in here is undiluted black craft paint. What I've found from experience is if you start large first, do some big initials across the page. I'm not going to do it here because my paint's wet and I can't flip the page. But start large, then practice getting smaller. Now, my point size on these letters are just about a half an inch, or for the capitals, maybe an inch, 3/4 inches. I am not to the point, and I've practiced with these a lot, to where I can write with normal tiny handwriting. Also, be aware of what you're using to write with. Paint, I find, is easier. If I put ink in here, you can get smaller nozzles, but you have to contact Fine Line Paint Applicator directly. You can get little nozzles to put in here, and that's all I'm going to say about it. I've never really done it, but my understanding is that this part of the nozzle can be removed and another tiny one inserted so that you can write with a liquid media such as ink. That I've never done it. I don't know how it works. I'm just saying that. I do not believe that these tiny nozzles are out on the retail market. But that's what I think. I could be wrong. Okay. So when you start here, I will say when you start painting with the Fine Line Applicator, usually you'll start and you'll want to squeeze your bottle so that it'll get some paint or ink or media out on the paper. And when you do that, it always starts with kind of like a little blob at the beginning. And I always see a little blob at the end. It takes some practice to not get those little beginning and ending blobs. And when you lift up your nozzle from the paper, it tends to have a little blob. What I like to do is say, okay, it's happening. See right here on the T. Let me zoom in a little. Right there, you can see there's just a little beginning blob on the T. So the more you work with it, the more you're able to control it. The more you're aware that it's happening, you can use what it's happening to your advantage. And I've even taken those beginning and ending blobs and worked them into a design. Not so much in my writing as in my drawing, But I suppose if you wanted to start getting elegant writing, you could work that in. I'm still getting there. But I thought that I would just go in slow motion. Maybe I'll leave it zoomed in. Now, I'm standing up. I usually sit down when I write. I'm going to go ahead and sit down here. And I'm going to let you see me write in real time. What was I going to say for the next one? I have this. The title is Job Description of a Country Cat. And I put chase mouse, purr, get into mischief, watch the butterflies, could be chase the butterflies, roam the property, protect my humans, sit in sunbeams. I'll put chase the buggies, chase the bugs. I'll put that, chase the bugs. I put a little star here, just as my beginning. See, and I got the blob right there, but that's okay. And I'm going to turn it, because I always slant my paper when I write. So, another thing is, let me tear off a little. This is just a little paper towel that I have over by my water pot when I wipe off my brushes. But paint will tend to collect the tip of your nozzle as you're writing. I like to keep that clean. I just take, every now and then, lift my nozzle up and wipe it off on a Kleenex or something. Okay, so I know I'm going to get that little blob, so I'm just going to try to control it. I find that you can go like this when you're writing. That's really hard. You don't even do that with a pencil. I kind of rest my hand on my paper. Sometimes I'll put my hand, especially if I've got something wet going on down here, I'll put my left hand under my right hand, and that gives me a little bit more control while I'm writing too. You have to kind of experiment. But if you hold your paint applicator at a comfortable angle, sometimes when I'm squeezing out the paint, I almost hold it horizontally. Not all the time. Usually I hold it at just about maybe a 45-degree angle, whatever you're comfortable with holding your pencils when you're writing. I'm going to put chase the bugs. See, I already got paint dripping out there. Let's wipe that off. Okay. Chase I'm going to put country bugs just for fun. I'm trying to think of job descriptions. If I were going to hire a kitty, a country kitty, what would I tell him his job was going to be? Chase the bugs, purr. I should put purr loudly. Let's see. Sit in the sunbeams. Defend. The home from evil, malicious, conniving, K-O-N-N-I-V-I-N-G, conniving birds. And then I'm going to put nap on I'll put braided rugs. Just because I want to have something to write. Braided rugs. Now I have to think more about what kitties do, but at least I filled up the page. My writing is pretty much dry. You just need to be aware. Even Dede, when she was demonstrating, if you look at her number 4 video in this series about her desk journals, she had illustrated how she was writing with ink, but she was illustrating how ink does, you think it's dry, but there are parts in there that are not dry yet, and she blots hers up. But what I want to point out, especially on these thicker areas in here, the paint, when it dries, gets kind of like a coat, a skim, like the outer portion, the outer layer is dry, but the paint underneath of it, like on this O here and this A, I can still see this A where it looks like it's dry on top, but it's so thick that that paint underneath of that blob is still drying. You can take your heat gun and go on the underside, and that will help it dry, but most of the time it's just best to walk away. And I'm not sure I spelled conniving right. I'll have to look it up in the dictionary, but I want to talk about that. It's okay when you're working in your art journals to misspell a word. If you watch my videos, I know there have been several points in my videos where I've misspelled words. And it's been pointed out to me, and I do try to go back and fix what I can. But it's okay. This is an art journal. This is not a masterpiece. This is not something you're going to sell to somebody. This is, I mean, it's nice to have it spelled right. It proves you're smart. But if you misspell a word, if you can't remember how it's spelled, it's okay. Oh, I'm going to go, let's see, I'm going to draw my kitty here. You know, this is not Garfield here. This is, this is just a little page in my art journal where I'm just playing and having some fun. And that's what these are. This is a magazine that you painted the pages. This is not even expensive media. This is craft paint. My goodness. And I do like working with cheaper media too, because it frees me up from having to be so darned perfect. Perfection's overrated. Nobody's ever perfect. And trying to be perfect just gets you into more trouble. There. Shall we give him some stripes? Let's give him some country cat stripes. And let's give him a big bushy tail. There. That's better. Could come back and paint him later. I'm going to clean the I'm going to clean the nozzle off. I'm not quite done using this. When I'm done with it, I'll screw this cap off like this, and then I'll take it to the utility and wash all of that out. And clean out your nozzle. Just let some cool or warm water. I don't use hot water. Just wash it out. I don't empty this because there's still paint in there. I just refill this. If I switch colors, like if I decided I wanted to put red in here, I'd wash out the bottle. But I don't bother with having to wash out this every time. Every time that I close up my cap here. You can do that too. I have to get that up closer to my face. Screw that back on. And then maybe just take the heat gun and hit this a little here. And actually, let's take our towel and see how dry it is. Nothing's coming up on it. So I think this page is good to flip. I want to try some other things in here. This video is going to be long. It's okay for this stuff to happen. This is a playground. We're experimenting with writing. Head into spring with. What are we going to head into spring with? Well, I want to experiment with the Crayolas. These were some Crayolas that were sitting in the dresser drawer. Let's try. Shall we try a blue Crayola? let's head into spring with crayons. It gets I can see the texture of and I don't know, I'm still there. I'm still zoomed in, I think. I'm not sure how much of this you're seeing. Now this is a wax, so you have to be aware of that if you work on this more. Head into spring with crayons. And let's see, what else do we want to head into spring with? Let's try this red one. Flower seed. So we can write with crayons. I'm going to put my Crayolas back in here. So we've experimented with that. I want to try my R2 pen. I also want to try the Bic pens. Let's try the Bic first, since that's what she uses. What else are we going to head into spring with? Umbrellas? Oh, that writes nice on here. U-M-B-R-E-L-L-A-S. Let's draw an umbrella here. Yeah, this writes nice on this craft paint. This is just white craft paint. And we could even draw some raindrops here. Do a little doodling. And let's get this red Crayola out again. Well, we'll get the red one out, orange one. Let's draw some little seeds. Pretend that's flower seed. And crayons. Let's get this one out again. Let's get this purple out. Let's draw a crayon. And let's do an orange one with it. Just to see how this media works on the craft paint. Okay, so I've used the crayons. I've written with the fine line paint applicator with black on white. And this is crayons. I've used the Bic pen. Let's try the R2 pen. I'm trying to think what I want to head into spring with. Ice cream cones? Ice cream. Oh, ice. I'm trying to do a little bit more of a bold letter here. I like these R2 pens because they are water-soluble ink, and I have a video out there of all the techniques that you can do, not all of them, but of techniques that you can do with these R2 pens because they're water-soluble. I do see it building up a little on the tip of my pen, but maybe that's because I'm digging into the paint here. And that's a good point. Like this area here, can you see where I'm pointing? Yeah, this area here has a big drop of paint, so as my pen comes across there, it might scratch into that paint, which is okay, but just be aware that you could get paint globbed up on the tip of your pen. It might need to be wiped off. Ice cream. Now the paint, what I'm using here is pretty dry media. Your ink is dry. I mean, I can touch this. I mean, this ink out of your ballpoint pen, out of the Bic pen, I should write Bic pen. Crayons. Let's see, I'll write up here, testing. Writing media over craft paint. And today is May 19th. You see how scratchy that's getting there? Let's see if I can scratch this off a little. Wipe my point off a little here. So I do find my R2 pen, at least, maybe the Bic pen would too if I used it enough, gets a little scratchy on the paint, especially if you're wanting to do a bolder line here. Just something to be aware of. If you were just writing text, I mean, write a line of text. It's going to be okay, but if you're going in here scratching on your paint to get a black area, you're going to scratch through that paint and get it on the tip of your pen. Just something to be aware of. Well, we want to draw an ice cream cone here. Yeah, it's getting, I don't know if it's ruined that. I need a piece of paper here. So, I don't know if I can get this going again. I'm not sure about using these R2 pens on craft paint. It starts out fine, but as you can see, it's clogged up the point. And I imagine it's got little paints clogging it up. I might try to clean it out with some alcohol. But right now, I know I have ink in this pen and it's not coming out. So, my conclusion is, right now, don't use the R2 pen on it. The Bic pen Let's try with the big pen and see if it'll clog up my big pen. Let's finish the ice cream cone. Shall we give it more than one scoop? How about a triple decker? And let's so far it seems okay, but let's try more on here. Let's see what else are we going to head into spring with. How about a sweater? Let's put a light sweater. I want to try with my big pen. Let's put R2 pen here. I want to see if I can cause this big pen to clog up. So this is the big pen again. I'm going to put big bold test. That seems to work fairly well. So I would stick with the big pens. Using another ballpoint pen, you may tend to clog up your pen. Well, now see, it's writing again, but it's not going to write for long. I think I can get this started again if I keep working with it. But I will not use these R2 pens on this painted paper. I will use the big pens, and that's what Dede said worked. But you got to test these things. I'm not having a problem, and I put a lot of ink on this page. So, all right. Let's enhance my crayon up here. The next thing that I want to test on this painted craft paint are my Stabilo pencils. I have a brown, normal sized one, and a black biggie marker. I also have these water brushes. I got these in the craft round robin box that my year 2017 group was passing along. Boy, was I happy to get these. I put alcohol in one of these, and I believe it's this one. Yes, it's that one. Let's try a little alcohol on this R2. Look at that. Now, I believe you could do water on the R2 and do the same thing. Let's try, brush this off a little. Let's try the alcohol on the big pen. Look at that. Oh, look at that. That's cool. Let's do some raindrops. This is alcohol, 91%. Get it at the drugstore. I'm just going over the letters for the fun of it. Because this is a playground. You can climb on the monkey bars. You can swing on as high as you want on the swing set. I don't think alcohol will affect the Crayolas. That's how wax. It's affecting the ink around it. I'm softening the ink around this word. It's not affecting the Crayola itself. Okay, so that's alcohol in this one. This one is just plain water. You can see I've used it. I've used it already today. Let's try it on the R2 pan here. Water cleans it off. Water, I can wash it away. So I guess that would be good if you wanted to correct a mistake that you were making with your R2 pen. Let's just lighten the whole thing. We're just washing it off. Well, not completely. I would probably paint over this if I really wanted to wipe it away. But it could give it a, you could use with the tonal values on there. Okay. And I should put on here plus water, just so that I remember later when I come back. Okay, so I want to work with the Stabilo. So what else are we going to head into spring with? That's the hardest part. Got to get my imagination going. How about some sort of a Kool-Aid drink? I'm going to put Kool-Aid. I like these almost as much as I like the crayons, but I don't have a whole bunch of colors in these. And I know you're going to say, well, what about colored pencils? I don't own any colored pencils. I have some, I have a Derwent, I believe, here. Let's see, that's Stabilo. Stabilo. Here, I've got a Derwent. Oh, this is a Faber-Castell water-based marker. We'll try that. I'm going to put a Kool-Aid. And this is Kool-Aid, sugary Kool-Aid that you buy for the kids, folks. This is not any type of drug or anything. Kool-Aid. I don't know. Usually he's a round picture like that, and he's got a smile on his face. Cool. Now, Stabilos are water-soluble, so let's take our... That's the alcohol. Let's see if it will wash away or if it will... See the difference between a Stabilo and what happened here with my R2 pen? Although I will say, it washed it away, but it's drying and some of it's coming back. But the Stabilo paints it. I do like these Stabilos. They're water soluble, but you can use them more on paper. They're made to go on metal and glass and plastic and paper. So I think the Stabilo pencils work good on overcraft paint. You'll probably be seeing me use several of these things on my other pages. This, I'm just testing different things now. Let's clean that off a little. I'll get my big pen. Let's put Stabilo, brown Stabilo. Notice that I'm journaling now with my big pen. S-T, how do you spell it? A-B-I-L-O? I think that's what it is. I-L-O. Pencil. Okay. Let's try the big fat black one. I got to think of something else. It's got to be something simple because I'm going to make a bold line. How about candy? I'm trying to think like a kid today. C-A... Now see how it kind of gets the texture of the paint? Well, that'll be wiped out. I just want to get some big words here. And you could leave it like that, or you can take your water-based brush and paint it out. course, I have a smoothie here. Maybe I'll do a smoothie next. Smoothie and avocado dip. Yum, avocado dip. The kids will like that. Let's just take a little of this and draw a piece of candy here. Let's take a little of this in here. There. Wash this off a little. Let's do a smoothie. Okay, let's try this Derwent. This is a watercolor pencil, and it's a brownish color. Let's put a smoothie. Now, I already can tell the difference between the watercolor pencil and the Stabilo. I've heard many times people say, oh, you can use a watercolor pencil if you don't have a Stabilo. Well, true and not true. They're both water soluble, and if you're working on a plain piece of paper, you might get the same effect. But I can tell you that the Stabilo is made to work on multiple surfaces, and it's juicier. For a lack of a better word, it's a dry media, but it goes on smoother. It's whereas the watercolor pencil, you can see that I'm having to go over this S several times just to get some media on. And it'd be the same way on a piece of paper. I'm going to put smoothie. How about a spinach smoothie? The kids would like that. Okay, let's try the water brush on it. And it does paint out. I mean, this is a watercolor pencil, so it does paint out. I think the ink will be next. Let's do a scratchy writing like Dede did on her. If you look at her desk journals video that she just put up, she went through several of her desk journals, and then in there she starts working in her magazine idea playground book, and she takes ink and she writes with her dauber. Now she doesn't squeeze ink out, she just writes with what's on there, and she wrote the word chill. I'm having to squeeze a little ink because I don't have any ink on my chill. Yeah, I like that. Chill what? Chill. She was using it in the fact of being relaxed. But I'm thinking about, well, yeah, chill. I'm going to put relax here. I'm having to squeeze some ink out because I don't have any ink on my dauber that's coming off on the page. I want to get the L better. That's good enough. So you can write with ink. This is Higgins. Yeah. This is the Black Magic ink. This is a waterproof ink. They sell it as waterproof ink. Usually your inks that you use in your fountain pens are water-soluble ink. But this Black Magic, I buy it, I think I got this at Michael's. It's called Higgins Black Magic. It is sold as a waterproof ink. Let's dry this. Now she points out that her ink, even though you think it's dry, it's not really dry. Let's do what she did. She took a Kleenex and she did what she called wicking. And she just grabbed some of that color up on her towel. And maybe there, see? She wicks it up. Just like you would just to get ink off of the page that's puddled. Try this eye. I don't have the patience to wick. I do this. I blot. That's because I don't mind blots. And this probably is not completely dry, but I'm going to leave it because I want to move on. I'm going to document Higgins Black Ink. Black Magic Ink. Higgins Black Magic Ink. Yeah, that works. So there's several things that you can use here. What else do I have? Let's try painting. Let's see. I think I'll choose this one. Looks like I might have some control with that tip. Let's just try painting. Instead of writing with the dopper, let's try painting with the ink. Let's just drop it in there and get some ink on it. I'm just going to put me. Head into spring with me. Here you're just doing a little more writing, but you could do maybe some calligraphy if you wanted. My calligraphy, I'm not a calligrapher. M-E-R. That's an R. I. Whoops. Okay. I need to wash that out. Write with ink dopper. And then I'll put write with brush. I did want to try my dip pen. Let's try that. My dip pen may need to be cleaned out. It may not be the best thing to try right now, but we'll see. Let's try it here. Yeah. Let's put me again. Me, me, me. I will say, with the pen, I can tell on my writing, you're writing on a craft painted surface, and you're actually, the point of your pen is kind of digging into that paint. So you're going to do some stroking here, because you aren't going to get that smooth like you would with a ballpoint pen. So yes, a dip pen will work on craft paint, but just be aware that you might be doing more. You aren't going to get that smooth penmanship line across there. You're going to be doing more drawing of your letters. I'm going to put dip pen here. I do like these big pens on here. Okay. So I'm going to hit this with the heat gun one more time. And let's go to a colored page. I don't know. I want a darker color page. I'm trying to work in the back of my book, but I don't want to use all my... Let's see. White on green. I have a... This'll do. I'm just going to close that up. I'm just going to put writing test here. I'm going to use my white fine liner, so you can see the difference between the black and the white. You could use the black one on here too. Might compare the black to the white. Let's put, we can put anything on here. This is just a blank page. Let's put imagine. I am a... Now see, I'm printing here. G-I-N-E. And this paint is fairly thick on here. So just be aware that I'm going to have to let that dry. create. And you can doodle, you can draw, you can, you can do flourishes, different things. So that's the white on a colored surface. Paint applicator, let's clean that off a little. Let's try the metallic. Now this is the 20 gauge. I don't know if I'll get a good flow out here. I'm just going to do the initial M. But this is a metallic paint in here. M. Well, let's do Imagine. Let's print it. I am a, so getting pretty thin line. G, and I'm finding I have to press harder on this, but I will say this paint has been in here for several months, and it's probably gotten a little thick. Sometimes I go in and I clean my nozzle out just by putting that little wire in there, but G, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to finish this. Let's leave it like that. I don't want to fool with it. Especially with your metallics and your glossy acrylic, if you use that in there, I really would recommend not leaving it in your fine line paint applicator for months on end. Pour it out, spread out the remains on a page, a scrap page, because you're going to run into this issue. You do as you wish. But it did a nice initial here. I could take this under the water faucet and, probably clean this out better, but I don't want to fool with it right now. You get the idea. It looks nice on the page. Let's do a black. Let's finish it with black. See how much easier this whoops. Imagine. There we go. I like to do embellishing with the metallic if I do it at all. And I do not like using the glossy metallic in a journal. On tags or ATCs, a piece of art that's separate from a book that you're going to close up. That's where I would use the metallic. Got a couple of other things to try here. The Molotow marker, which is blue. It's going to be blue on blue. But I think it'll work. Let's just do and I'm using the ink that was in here when I purchased it. But this is a paint marker, so it should work okay, but it is a felt tip, so I don't know. The Meri, I don't know if it'll clog it up, because I don't have a lot of experience with Molotows. I bought these to experiment with. Okay, and the last thing I want to experiment with is some of these pencils. Let's try this big thick one, which is a charcoal pencil. Now charcoal, will rub off, but let's just write the Meri Atelier again. Or draw it or whatever, scratch it on there. Blend it in. That's kind of fun, isn't it? Probably have to put a sealer on that. But it's a playground. You can do that. I'm getting impatient. So that could be something you could play with. This says terracotta drawing. It doesn't say whether it's charcoal or not. Let's do Imagine. Oh, I like this one. I can feel it's waxy. I like that terracotta one. This is a Derwent. It says terracotta 6400. It came in this set of sketching collection. I probably have the description of what's in there on the bottom. White. Let's try the white. Let's do create here. This is a Stabilo white. It would probably show up better on black, but it does show up here. Could do a little blending, I suppose, if you wanted to. This is Stabilo white. This is a terracotta Derwent drawing. This is a charcoal pencil. This is a Molotow marker, paint marker. This is metallic fine, and the fine line paint applicator. And this is white, the fine line. So you can see I've used several different writing media on these pages. I've used paint brushes, I've used paint markers, I've used Crayola, I've used the Bic pen, I've used ink, I've used paint in my fine line paint applicators. Over here, we used crayons. We tested the R2 pen, which I probably would not recommend, or any fine writing pen. You're going to want to stay away from that on your craft paint. Your Bic pen, I used the Stabilo pencil. We wrote with ink, and we wrote with our fine line paint applicator here in longhand. So we have a lot of choices. I hope this has been as fun and as informative for you as it has been for me. I can't wait to work more in this magazine idea playground. I can't wait to get all these pages painted. You can see I'm already having fun in it. I will see you on the next page.